637 Talk 107.3 FM WBRP. Good morning, everybody. Brian Haldane here with you. Joined on the hotline right now by Senator Bill Cassidy. I saw the press release late last week. Had to get him on about this. The headline for the release reads, Cassidy set to speak on panel of experts on trade-based money laundering. Senator Cassidy, good morning. Welcome to Talk 107.3.
Hey, Brian, thank you for having me, and obviously care about the topic. You know, Brian, there has been kind of think about it. As talented as the United States is, all the resources that we have, our ability to long ago send a man to the moon, but now do cyber so that if Iran or North Korea messes with us, we mess with them even worse. And yet, drug lords ship maybe as much as $100 billion a year outside our country. They send it to Mexico. They send it to Central America, causing caravans to form. They send it to the Middle East, where Hezbollah uses the dollars to attack Israel, attack us, attack people in Europe, and we can't do anything about it? It's like, hello? And part of it, I'm a doc, so I always figure you make the diagnosis, you decide what the problem is, and you come up with a cure. Turns out they just kind of take this money, they wrap it in legitimate trade, they move dollars offshore, no one ever knows, and boom, they do their evil deeds. This is about stopping that, using the talent of the United States to start winning instead of losing on the issue of drugs.
What kind of trades do they focus in on in trade-based money laundering? Because, I mean, the first thing that popped in my head was Breaking Bad and Walter White buying a car wash. I mean, is that kind of where we're at?
It can be all sorts of things. It can be cash-based stuff, in which, car washes work well. Gambling works well. You go in and you buy chips with all the money, with all the cash, and then you somehow bring it out and you cash your chips in and you launder the money. And so there's different ways to do it. What we're more concerned about is when somebody ships some smartphones and the invoice reads smartphones, but the shipment is actually flip phones. Yeah, just stay with me. No one uses flip phones, but just stay with me. And so you're valuing it at $1,000 a phone. You're shipping something which may be $10 a phone, and the arbitrage there allows you to move dollars around the globe.
With apologies to Carl Malone for the flip phone, because I know he's still got one. So when they do this, though, okay, so how, as Americans, as everyday Americans, how often do we inadvertently participate in these businesses?
Oh, it goes on. Again, if you're moving that much money, all of us have the potential to be impacted. So give you some specific examples where flooded cars after the Great Flood of 2016, not necessarily, but after a great flood, are bought by folks out of Lebanon who ship the cars to West Africa, who, so they've used their cash to buy the cars, and then they ship the cars to Africa, sell them in Africa, and they've laundered their money. That's one example that plausibly happened in our region, because this is a common thing that they do. When people buy refrigerators by the wholesale here and ship them to Latin America, selling them at a sharp discount, they don't care about getting their money out of the purchase of the refrigerators. They just wanted to find something they could ship to South America to get their dollars out of the U.S. They sell them at a discount there. The problem is it messes up your normal retailer in South America.
Yes,
instead of being able to sell a refrigerator for 110% of the cost, they're having to compete with somebody selling it for 80% of the cost. And so there's these dollars moving around. But to give you a little bit of the idea of how we have a problem in our country, when someone ships goods overseas, the Treasury Department gets the invoice, Customs and Border Patrol gets the manifest, but the two never meet. No one ever correlates the invoice with the manifest. So you could say you're shipping refrigerators, turns out you're shipping something different, or maybe not at all. Or maybe you're sending two sets of refrigerators. And all that allows these dollars to move back and forth, and then you begin to wonder how we don't have a bigger problem than we have. But it gets down to we're Americans, we can solve it, make the correct diagnosis, then find a solution.
Senator Bill Cassidy is our guest. Coming up on Wednesday, he's going to be speaking on a panel of experts. about trade-based money laundering. Senator, if we could look a little bit further down the line, whose problem is this to take on? Like, who could legitimately enforce anything that would come out of this panel?
So the problem is that it is so out there. It involves the CIA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the FBI. It involves the Treasury Department, Customs Border Patrol, Homeland Security, and I know I'm leaving out a lot. So the reason that cartels have been able to move these drugs is that it's so many people, so many agencies that have to be involved. And Brian, would it surprise you if I told you that sometimes federal agencies don't coordinate with each other?
Yeah, right? I mean,
yeah, right. Now we're talking about 10 of them
right.
Having to coordinate at a high level.
What?
Now, the Brits have just taken this on. Just 2 weeks ago, they formed this high-level interagency task force that's going to coordinate. We're proposing we do the same. We're proposing, I'd say my staff and I have been working on this for 2 years. Excuse me, let's sneeze. We're proposing not just that we have an interagency task force, but distributed ledger, which is kind of blockchain, the Bitcoin. There's a version of it that you could start tracking goods with. It's called a chain of truth. There's a professor out of ULL that gave me this great article to understand it. I'll share it with you if you want to see it.
Yes, please.
And you now, when you have a trade transaction, if you have a chain of truth, that if somebody breaks the chain, you know it, everybody knows it immediately. Maybe that's a solution. But we got it. We've made the diagnosis. Now we're working on solutions.
Unbelievable. Senator Bill Cassidy's with us. I got about 30 seconds left, Senator. I also wanted to touch on this very quickly. A big announcement coming out of your office last week about $2.6 million coming to Louisiana health clinics. Could you touch on where that money's going real quick?
Yeah, we got 4 clinics around the state that we got 2 different initiatives we're working on in terms of health. One is about the opioid epidemic, and the one you referred to, I believe, is the one for opioids.
Yes.
And opioids, as I just mentioned, it's a problem. More people die from overdose in 1 year in the United States than died in 10 years in Vietnam. 55,000 in Vietnam, 66,000 annually from overdose now are fellow Americans. Each of us knows somebody. So the Congress has made lots of efforts to kind of control this in a variety of ways. And one way is, what do you do about treatment? If somebody comes in, they're addicted, they're a pregnant woman, and she's got a baby, and she's addicted, what can you do? So we're getting dollars out there for local communities with guidelines and safeguards to put in programs to help our nation deal with the opioid epidemic. And so I believe we got 2. Another one's on maternal mortality. Louisiana has the highest death rate from associated with women who are pregnant in the nation, the highest. And that's wrong. The state's doing some things to address it, but this is to help the state and others to kind of lower that death rate.
Senator Bill Cassidy, appreciate the time this morning, man.
Hey, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.